Greetings and salutations. It's David Duford here at daveduford.com. davedduford.com. I don't even know my own website. Thank you guys for watching on today's interview. I'm here with, is it the Medicare coach? Is that what you go by, or Medicare guru?
Medicare guru, I guess.
Guru.
Kind of took off that. Actually, it's supposed to be like the group name, but then everybody just started calling me that.
Yeah.
I was going to create Medicare gurus, everybody. But,
right. Well, leaders sometimes are thrusted into leadership positions. So
that's how I became the president of my neighborhood association.
Oh, yeah. You're one of those guys.
They're just like, you look like you should be president of the neighborhood association. I'm like, I don't think so.
You'll learn how to say no, Justin.
Yeah.
So this is Justin Brock. He's a Medicare specialist, and he is here today as a fellow agency compatriot like myself to give you perspective on what it's like to go from agent salesperson to agency builder extraordinaire. So without further ado, Justin, why don't you pop in here and tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Okay, I'm Justin Brock. I've done an interview with Dave before, and I think it was really fun. So I asked him what else we could talk about, because I always have a good time. So I run an agency, Medicare focused agency. We do health insurance and of course we do life and annuities too. We need to do more of that, but we do a lot of Medicare and health, and it's been very successful. It's been growing. At this point, it's one of those things where it's like, there's 15 directions to grow, and you kind of got to pick like two and hammer down on that, because it seems like there's more opportunity than time, and so that's kind of where we are. Also run, a Medicare gurus group on Facebook that's kind of blossomed into, me doing a little bit of digital training and stuff as well, to people that don't directly work for us, or maybe that I just don't have time to service that many agents. So we create a digital training for them to purchase, whether they work through us or with us or not. So
I remember you had released a training. I think it was called the Blitzkrieg. It was essentially a Facebook
Facebook marketing for, the way we do it. The reason I even made that course was because it was, there was a lot of courses out there that were teaching like cookie cutter lead gen, and I was trying to teach how to get people to call you. That was the concept.
Yeah.
It's done very well. I had a lot of people that have really, really said it's done well. I had a lot of people that bought it, and they say, yeah, I bought it because I knew I was going to watch it one day, but I haven't watched it yet. And I'm like, you should watch it.
That's me. I bought it. I was like, oh, let me check this out just for the sake of reviewing it. I haven't even opened it up.
Yeah. There's a lot of that in course buying.
Yeah, that was going to say, the old saying goes, I used to hear Dan Kennedy say this a lot. He would say, you got to be comfortable with the fact that most of your books and audio cassettes are going to still be in the plastic wrapper on the bookcase. And it's true.
Hey, somebody paid for it, I guess, whatever, But
well, it's up to you to put it into action or not,
That's you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him.
Yeah, definitely. So at this point, you've got, and we'll link the Facebook group below if you want to join it. Look in the description box when you see this video. You're still selling on some level face-to-face or over the phone, correct?
Both. We don't go to houses anymore. We have transitioned into brick and mortar agency that sells half and half over the phone, and driving people to come to our office.
You drive people to your office?
Yeah, we actually
really have a pickup service. That's cool.
Driving, you drive traffic to a website. We're driving the traffic.
Like we're literally driving them there. That's cool.
Cool. So well, if they get this is the right Medicare plan, it might give them rides to us. No,
that's true. Yeah.
But, no, we have gotten a very good reputation by working a 100-mile probably radius geographic area where people within maybe 30 or 40 miles actually do come to us quite often. We created a really nice office space, and I think the more people that come in, the more want to, because the word of mouth is really good in that way.
Sure, absolutely. So I know it wasn't always this way. You, I think, had been, and I don't know what capacity you've been as far as an agency, if you've been an agent on your own or with the dad. I forget the story there.
My dad, was an independent agent, very
Yeah,
successful.
that's right.
I was in the military and had kids, and decided that it was time to transition out. And he just told me, hey, you should come be an agent. I can get you contracted, and kind of just took me in that way and helped me get started learning by, coming in and helping him with some of the traffic he was getting. But he, at that point, wasn't getting enough for me to just sit there and handle his traffic. So I would also have to buy direct mail leads and go out and knock on doors and do that. So I did that for about a year and a half. And then within that time, I knew that while I actually was pretty good at it, it just wasn't the way I wanted to do it forever. And so I started the running Facebook ads for dental. Actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was just trying to test it on that. And I a combination of lots and lots of studying it and the right timing, because sometimes there's timing.
Yeah.
And I guess this is like a good piece of advice for me. Anytime something's working really well, use it and use it to as much as you can, because it's not going to work very well forever. Because if it's working very well right now, it's going to get exploited. Marketers ruin everything. So,
well, you reach a peak saturation. I know in my personal training business, I had one ad I ran for 2 years in one little dinky news publication, and it made my business. But it got to the point where it wasn't pulling as much because it was the same ad over and over and over again. Yeah. And so you got to, you just leverage and scale as much on a concept that works as possible until it's tapped,
Right. Yeah. And just always be looking for that next thing. But so, yeah, I mean, the Facebook kind of took me to where it took me into a younger demographic too, because it took me into like the 45 to 64 market more. Mm-hmm. But I was able to write a lot of those products, health insurance, and then I was still getting plenty of Medicare. But these were people that were more apt to do business over the phone, or come to me, or things like that. Then I kind of spoiled myself on the idea of, being able to not have to go anywhere and have people come to me. And it's been, it's always a chase to keep that happening. But at that point, I'd say for about 6 months to a year, it was really easy. And then, Facebook started getting saturated. And actually, I think it's on the way back down now. It comes in waves.
In Medicare or just in general?
I think in general, there was a gold rush to people trying to run their own Facebook ads. And then what they figured out is I can create a lead, but what's the value of that lead?
Right.
It's people weren't answering the phones as much. And so now we're seeing an exodus coming out of it. And so some of the big fish will start to squeeze back in again, and it'll probably, come back. But there were people that I know that were doing a lot of Facebook that are now, have been trying to divest into other marketing strategies because it got so saturated.
It's funny. I know we're talking about agency building, but this is an interesting thing I'll comment on myself. I have felt over the past couple of months that, at least on the final expense side, I don't know about the Medicare, that the Facebook marketing has gotten way more saturated, way more competitive. Yeah. I think it's more competitive than direct mail. Yeah. Facebook, as remarkets similar type ads to prospects. So you can count on your client getting multiple burial insurance ads, and they'll fill them out and click and all that stuff. And it's just a factor you've got to consider, and it's, but that's good. If you think there's and that's the thing, is it does wax and wane. Yeah. There's definitely been a growing number of people doing Facebook leads, at least in the final expense side of things. So
I think that Medicare agencies, large agencies and call centers hit Facebook hard even before final expense did. And so I think maybe the exodus is happening on the Medicare, and it will happen on final expense, because people that don't have a lot of money to spend are not going to sit there and keep spending money on Facebook leads. Even if they're getting them for $3 a lead, they can't answer the damn phone.
Well, and what I've found is, so some of the vendors we like using have gone up about 25% to 50% in price from last year to this year. And I mean, even telemarketed leads, if you've got a good vendor, we've got one, and it's been similar, if not better quality at, sometimes half the price.
Yeah.
So it's just like run the direction others aren't going. Sometimes it's a good strategy.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about common obstacles that producing agents go through in building a team. So you got a guy who's done well, maybe someone out here watching this that fits the bill. They do well. Maybe they're not the greatest, but they're not bad. They're pretty good. And they want to build a team. What are the obstacles you've experienced or seen in others that they've experienced when transitioning from producing only to a mixture of that plus recruiting?
So I think that the first thing is, I guess the majority of our initial recruiting was more like hiring. Once we started getting people to come to an office, we started hiring and building brick and mortar agency where we were plugging people into something that we knew there was already going to be a significant lead flow to, or
you already had a platform ready for them.
Yeah. So we were very selective in adding one at a time, because we knew we had the prospects for them, and we were offering base pays on LOA contracts, building an actual, what some people would call a captive agency, but with their captive brokers within our agency, but we're paying for the office, the E&O, the lead flow, the phone systems, everything is done for them. And I would, ones that work in that office would probably tell you, because most of them were independent before, that they freaking love it, because they're sitting there plugged in and there's no cap on how much they can make. They just got to sit there and try to capture as much of it as they can. And of course, there are slower weeks than others, and that's when they're supposed to actively market themselves and try to call people and stuff. But when we pursued that, I think for us it was like we wanted to make sure we got our lead flow up to support those. And then there's another side of recruiting or agency building that is more referred to in the biz, if you will, as the brokerage side, where you're just recruiting independents on contracts, and there's multiple ways. And we've done some of that, but we haven't actively recruited them. What we've done is, because of the presence of the Facebook group and stuff, and then the relationships we've built, we found people that were already producing well and maybe found something that they wanted. So some of the bigger producers just wanted the top level contract, and if they had a question, they wanted to be able to ask it from somebody that actually did it. Okay. Right. So we've been able to pick up some guys like that, where I might be getting like very thin margins, but they're out producing in quantity, and all they want is when something comes up, they can ask me, and 99% of the time I know the answer to the question, or I know where to get the answer. And that's been our brokerage side hasn't been doing a lot of smaller agents, and I haven't focused on that because we have a few that I would call my smaller agents on the brokerage side, but I don't want to. I want to be able to commit those guys. I want to be able to commit some time to train them and help them so that I can justify that margin. Right. And so I'm not going to go just taking on tons and tons of small agents. And I think what a lot of recruiters do is they think, man, look at the rip I can get on this guy. But they don't realize, like, if you're not training them and pushing them, they're not going to write. And even if they take a contract, like I get them Prosperity or so-and-so here, but if I'm not pushing them, and then they got another contract with another guy, like MM with another guy, then they're going to, and then that guy's training them, that's the one they're going to write, So you might pick up one app here or there every now and then. And there are a lot of large brokerages that are built on 80%, the 80-20 rule, 80% of their agents writing 3 or 4 apps a year, but they have a higher margin. But they all have a core of top producing agencies. Yeah. And they either have to recruit them as top producing agencies by offering them something that they don't feel like they're getting elsewhere, or they have to build them to that top producing agency.
So what do you think a new agent should do? So we've kind of detailed a couple of strategies here. The first being, I would assume in some cases in your brick and mortar operation, you're taking brand new people to Medicare to some extent and putting a lot of effort, training, and development into them. But then you also have the independent or brokerage model where it is to an extent a numbers game. You're recruiting and could mass recruit, but obviously there's that section of time that you're going after the agents who have sold and made something of themselves as a kind of a business strategy.
Yeah.
What do you think for the guy who's been doing this for a couple of years, that has some street cred, understands this business, where do you think his time would be best spent in recruiting?
In recruiting. Okay, so if we're sticking on the building the agency model, in Medicare, it's an interesting thing because you know, somebody like that is going to at least have a little bit of residual built up, you know. And so what we see is guys that I talk to, and I've talked to some, I just did a video called, and you have some like this too, is like, how much money can you make in the insurance industry? And a lot of what I talk about is some of the people that I've known that have had the biggest individual years are life and annuity people.
Mm-hmm.
But then typically the people that I've seen on the independent side that had the biggest year after year after year are the ones that have stuck in some sort of residual base. Okay. Because that making $1 million in 1 year is possible with life and annuities, but you're working your ass off. Like,
yeah,
you're not like, you don't sleep. You probably don't have
right.
ever, you know, but with Medicare, so I've run into a lot of guys that have actually gotten up to the 300,000-400,000 renewals, and they're getting to the point where they can't continue to properly service their book without doing the next step is hiring, but they struggle with it because when you hire someone, you take a dip in your income. And regardless of what, like you take a new agent, a lot of times they say, okay, when I get to this income, that's when I'll do that. But by the time you get to that income, you've adapted to that income.
Right.
And, you know, of course, there's a breaking point where someone's like actually fabulously wealthy, and I'm sure they have plenty of money to invest. Sure. But up to, I'd say, $500,000 a year, people adjust to that income level.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it. You know, you're making $100,000 and you're making $200,000. All of a sudden you're thinking, okay, I'm making $250,000 a year. And that sounds like really good, but me and my wife and my kids are enjoying life a little bit when I am off, and we're not just rolling in the dough. You know, so, I mean, we're able to do the things we want, but it's not like I have a lot of money where I'm like, okay, I'm going to hire a guy and it's going to cost me $40,000 a year to do that.
Right.
I'm taking that away from my family.
Yeah. Right.
And so, but if you want to grow past that point, there does come a point where you have to take a dip in what you're actually bringing home. And
so you say dip in terms of just paying the person that's going to come on board, or time away from selling? It's
time. It's all of the above. I personally believe in paying some base. I think if you're training if you're on the brokerage model and you're going out and you're like hardcore training an independent agent and you're trying to put them through crash course, I'm going to go out, I'm going to train them, and then turn them loose, and then I'm just going to take a small margin. That's one thing. That's perfect. And if that's good for them, that's great. But if you're actually going to hire them to work and build like we have in the LOA model or the agency, you don't even have to do LOA. They could just do a low contract and you get the override. But if you're going to plug them in, I pay a base. We have where we pay them good commission as well. And there is a learning curve of time where you're spending on them rather than selling, and where they aren't able to just, especially in Medicare, because what most people say, I think the biggest barrier to people getting into Medicare is it takes a little bit to learn all the intricacies of it. So I think that you do have to think that, okay, for a few months at least, I'm not even going to start to break back even on this hire.
Right.
And I think that's a fair thing. And honestly, even the same thing on recruiting an independent agent. If you are on the brokerage side, and because I see you do like ride-alongs, if you could be selling, and if you go out and train a guy and he does really good, you could have went out and sold that much, made that much money. But in the long run, you're hopefully building a really good, strong agent in your hierarchy that's going to continue to be an income-producing asset year over year. Same with us. It might take me a while before I get that guy to where it's breaking even, but hopefully in the long run, he's going to end up staying with me and making money. Now, in the agency, I see a lot of people hiring an agent with no base, no office, nothing, and not even really any good training. And what I think they're really doing is just recruiting them with a contract and then saying, all right. And I call that the Aflac model.
Right.
But that's not hiring. For me, hiring is either extreme time commitment or giving them a little bit of base income as well, or the combination of that. And so when we hire people, we want them to stay. This is probably not going to make the video, but I call it, I can't remember where I heard this, but there's the term wage slavery.
Yeah.
I want my agents to be paid so well that they can't leave because they can't make that much money elsewhere.
Golden handcuffs. Yeah.
Golden handcuffs. Yeah. That's the more politically correct version.
Wage slave is, slavist
taboo.
Golden handcuffs certainly sound.
But it's true. And it's like, it's a good problem to have. It's like, hey, I'm not leaving, because for any other reason other than I'm making too much money.
There's something to lose.
Yeah. And of course we have a good environment. I think everybody that works here loves it. I mean, where we create autonomy in the environment. It's like, once they're trained, as long as the numbers look good, you can do whatever you want to. I'm not like forcing you to do anything, any kind of way. I just want the numbers to look good and know that you know what you're talking about. But,
I've realized, I used to be brazenly independent brokerage model only.
Right.
I was looking at some old Lincoln Heritage video I did. I actually took off because I was uniquely pissed when I was filming it, talking about Lincoln Heritage and recruiting practices and blah, blah, blah. But I've realized in my older age now that I'm 35, over the hill, as they say, that different strokes for different folks. There are some people, and I would argue probably the majority, that would do better in a well-structured, specific platform like what you offer than even what I would do, which is I do recruit agents on like a brokerage model. And why is that the case? Because most people are going to, with more involvement and around people they can interact with, the camaraderie. I think my perception now is that there's a lot more opportunity for better results per agent than there would be in a national distribution model where, you may hire a guy or recruit a guy in California and I'm in Tennessee. Not everybody's going to make that transition smoothly. Some will, but a lot of them won't.
Yeah, so I agree. I think the bad and the ugly of the captive recruiting market is that there are turds out there that are not doing it right. It's
right.
Like for me to say that I have an agent in here that's LOA, like I have them getting offered jobs, paying big bases and stuff back. People that have left jobs and the people they've left are trying to get them back. They don't want to go back. They love it here.
Right.
We're offer a great environment. We're recruiting people that are here. We are offering something for that. We're offering branding and leads and flow and prospects and a place to come every day to do it. And it feels like, and honestly, all of their incomes are higher this month than the month before, and the next month and the last. It's just always building, and so I don't see the people in here being unhappy. And I talked to a really good friend of ours, Galen Hendricks, about it. And she was talking about how the captive agencies or like call centers and captive agencies get a bad name, and people are trying to recruit out of them. And a lot of times those people are leaving those captive agencies and finding out like, whoa, it's a lot harder over here on the independent side than
different. It's prodigal son type of scenario. You find out real quick. Whoa.
The independent side is totally for the person that needs complete autonomy and freedom.
Right.
And they want to do things the way they want to do them, and they can't. And I read a Chet Holmes book called The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Yeah, I got it on the bookcase.
Yeah. So they talk about rating or recruiting sales superstars. And he even talks about recruiting people that are so type A and so hard to rein in their ego that he believes that one day they will leave them. And I think Grant Cardone even hits on that, like recruiting these people that are just like so, type A, but then making it good and hoping you can keep them there. But we recruit people that I think are type A sales people, but they just most of them have had an insurance license and have done independent work before. Some of them have even taken back other firm jobs and then done it on the side because they weren't making enough at it. But they all come from models that that were independent-based models that just didn't really offer them enough. We've hired them for Baker's Life before. I've hired people that were initially recruited into Modern Woodmen of America, which is
the tough racket there, man.
Tough one. But they were recruited into that, and then then they go independent as an independent final expense guys, and realize that it's a rough world. I mean, you have to make time commitments, and ultimately, I think on the final expense side, the part that's missing is the agency building. At some point, if you were going to be a final expense focused agent, you're gonna have to build something if you don't want to just be forever on the grind. Forever.
Yep, that's true.
The grind is great. Learn it, master it, make money, put some of it back, and then eventually 3-4 years in, start to build an agency, a hierarchy, recruit some people work for you, give them leads. Know that that's going to be an ever-changing thing as well, but then you could eventually maybe get to the point where you're not even having to sell that much, because when you're, the cool thing about insurance is, I think when people are recruited into insurance, is like you can have just this glorious retirement one day because of residual income. Well, a lot of that residual income comes from residual income products or building an agency that outlasts your ability to continue to stay in the grind. And I think that they miss that. I've talked to people that have been selling it for 20 years, and they're like, I didn't focus on a residual product, and I didn't recruit or build an agency, so now I'm still in the grind.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I remember when I started my agency in 2013, or started recruiting, I love work 6 days a week, all the time, nonstop. But I had one kid then, and I was probably 29, something like that. I'm 35 now, and I'm so glad that I at least spent some of my effort building an agency, because now, I have an income stream not dependent upon my personal production that substantially covers my lifestyle. And it takes time. You've got to have, obviously, like you've been talking about, a value proposition. You just can't recruit and expect to not do anything for these people. And you're certainly not going to stop selling either. You're going to be doing as much sales as you can between recruiting and training agents. So it's a big burden. But yeah, I agree. The benefits of that are that there's a disconnection between activity and income, which is completely different than, just selling like final expense straight. So question for you, can anyone be a great agency builder? If not, why?
I think that even gets down to the root question in sales. Can anybody be a great salesperson? I think that everyone can be trained to be better at something. And I think, honestly, a lot of times the best salespeople have a hard time building an agency because they think, I can do that. I can do that better myself. Let me just, give me that. It's just like when you're building a house with your dad and he's like, give me that hammer. Just get out of the way, And you're like, well, you're never really training that person to build that house or do that thing. And I experienced that because I'm an alpha salesperson. I sometimes people that work for me will ask me questions, and I'm sure they look at me and think that I'm looking at them like they're stupid. And I'm not really, but I'm just thinking like I thought you knew that already,
Right. Sure. Yeah.
And I think it's just but do I think that yes, I think that anybody can do it if they can create that value proposition like you're talking about. If you can figure out what you're providing those people, then and be a relatable good person. I think people are drawn to people that to work for people that they like. I was talking to a guy who is kind of a hiring specialist. Like he comes into companies and helps them. And I think a lot of people think, oh, everybody's motivated by money. And they're not all motivated by money. Everybody needs money as a resource to get the things that they want. But when you are thinking about building an agency, you got to think like, okay, at some point I might want a secretary, or I might want these other people that I hire. Maybe this one just wants more time at home with their kids. They want holidays off. They want, that sort of thing. They don't want to be, maybe they're working a job where they're having to work holidays. We've actually experienced that. Maybe they want maybe this person, is great with money, but every now and then if I get them tickets to a Grizzlies game or whatever it is, the things that are motivated, or a pat on the back. So there's a learning curve, because the things that motivate me don't necessarily motivate each individual person that you're recruiting or bringing on.
Right.
And then, of course, you could just recruit the kind of people that are motivated the same way you are, but that takes some people who might be a good opportunity for you off the table. So I think it's just a learning experience, like everything in life,
Right.
Just like you learn a sales process, you learn a recruiting or an agency building process.
So you mentioned earlier where you've hired agents from basically the competition. But we talked about how you hire new agents. So where do you find them? Like, how do you come across the quality insurance agents?
Don't wait until you need one right away, because it takes time to find. And I think it's interview people. We have done the whole, like ads on ZipRecruiter and stuff. You get a ton of bad, just garbage off of there.
Yeah.
But you can skim through it and find 5 or 10 people and interview them, like it's a job, whether you're brokerage model or not. I feel like you can, no matter what that job is, you can interview them. You can come in and don't be afraid to say, I'll call you later, and never call.
Yeah, right.
Or just tell them, I don't think this is a good fit, whatever.
In other words, hire slow, fire fast.
Yes. Yeah. That's the real thing to do. You bring, and sometimes somebody will interview really good and they'll be a little bit slower to the table. And then recognize too that some of the people that you bring on that are learning slow may not end up being really bad salespeople, but may require things to be said a couple of times. Because we've had that where one of my best sales guys is somebody that didn't learn as fast as my other best sales guy.
Mm-hmm.
That one guy, it's like, did I ever even teach him that, or did he just learn it on his own? The other one asking me a million questions, but once he got through the million questions, he's been really good, and he's actually outpacing everybody else. So I don't know, give people time, be okay with genuine inquisitive questions. The only wrong answer is the one you don't ask, or only wrong question when you don't ask. So I just think hire slow, like you're saying, be very selective in who you hire, but don't be afraid to pull the trigger and invest the money and time in them.
So if you have a preference, do you prefer to hire new agents or just newly licensed agents? Do you prefer to hire experienced agents?
I guess the 2 ways we've done it so far is hire an agent who has a little bit of experience. Typically, they've been life agents, because that seems to be the model that's recruited the most in, that haven't drunk some sort of group health Kool-Aid. People that have gotten on a group health Kool-Aid are ridiculous. But they're like, oh, there's no money in individual sales. Oh, okay. Commission is 1/10 of ours, but whatever.
Right.
So I think you hire the ones that have a little bit of experience but have never really found their permanent traction and are experienced and already licensed, or you hire somebody who isn't licensed into an administrative role for you, and then maybe they work their way up to deciding they want to become a licensed agent. And those are typically females or really young males, it seems to be for us. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not gender specific, but typically we have, sometimes you'll have women that have always been in an admin role, and you hire them into an admin role, but then you present the opportunity like, hey, you can get licensed and, even in busy season, sell a little more, make a little more money. And it worked out well for us too.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first started my agency, like 80% of my agents were 50 and older. It was weird. I don't know how all these old guys showed up all of a sudden. But over time, I've gotten a bunch of younger guys. But it's funny. Yeah, I think we kind of attract a certain type of person, right? Into our organization. We're kind of looking for the people who we mesh well with, that we get along with, that appreciate the value proposition. The more, again, like you said, the more transparent and clear you are in that, the better off you're going to be.
I have to hire people that aren't going to get offended by the crazy things I say sometimes.
Not you, Justin. Well, good. So I appreciate you doing this interview with me. If you don't mind, before you go, tell us where specifically agents watching this video can go to learn more about Medicare Gurus, your Facebook group, and anything else that you want to talk about.
Like you said, the group would be linked. So, that is the Medicare Gurus group is just a great place to mesh if you're on Facebook. If you're not, really the best place to send you to mine is I have a YouTube channel that has been growing. I've been trying to do a lot more content on there. A lot of it specifically related to Medicare. Mm-hmm. And you can find us on justinbrock.net as well. So,
yeah, send me that YouTube channel link too, by the way. I'll put it all down there.
Yeah, I sure will, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching today's broadcast. Hope you got a little bit of perspective on building an agency. It's a great route to go in your insurance career. You just got to do it the right way. So, Justin, thanks for your time today, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks.
See you.